Hello and welcome to another episode of Cascadian Mountain Weather. It's Thursday, June 6th, 2024. My name is Kyle McCrow. I'm here with Wyatt Mullen. And to start out, we're showing a picture of Mount Rainier because I think with a lot of this nice weather coming up this weekend, people are thinking about getting up into the higher mountains. So we're going to start by actually looking at what happened over the last week and how that's going to affect the conditions we'll find in the mountains this weekend.
Yeah, so finally a nice weekend after a bunch of June gloom, May gray, rain, whatever you want to call it. This week was pretty wet, especially at the beginning of the week and the end of last weekend. We had an atmospheric river come through, and so the lowlands picked up, in general, 1 to maybe 2 inches of rain, kind of like we discussed last week. And the mountains generally saw 2 to 5+ inches, especially more out towards the Olympics and in the Central Cascades. But everything in the Western Cascades got quite a bit. We can look at some official totals that were measured. So if you look down here is Mount St. Helens. This was the wettest area over the past week that saw between 6 and 7 inches, up at about 4,000 feet. We can see that Mount Rainier measured about 5 inches, 4.5 to 5 inches on the west side or the southwest side. The Olympics saw kind of 4 to 5 inches, and even up near Baker, we see kind of that 4 to 5 inch amounts with likely higher amounts in some of the upper elevations, even going towards 6, 7, 8 inches. That did fall as snow in some areas as well. So here's kind of our estimated snowfall over the 72 hours when the heaviest precipitation was falling. Snow levels started pretty high and then dropped to about 5 to 6,000 feet in the north section in the North Cascades, and maybe 6 to 7,000 feet on Sunday night. And we still had a decent amount of precipitation move through. So if we look, this is for the North Cascades and kind of a zoom in, maybe this is pretty rough estimates, but anywhere from 2 to, like, on the high mountain, maybe even 4 feet of snow. This might not have all accumulated because it was decently windy with the storm as well, so it kind of gets blown around. But you can see that there is a decent chunk of new snow, maybe 6 to 8 inches across much of the high elevations of the North Cascades. And we can go down to the southern volcanoes as well, where Mount St. Helens, which is down here in kind of the lower left corner, most of the snow level, or usually the snow level, was above Mount St. Helens, but Mount Rainier certainly got quite a decent chunk of snow in that kind of 2 to 4 feet range, if not a little bit more. So going into this weekend, I think if you looked a couple days ago, you might have thought that this weekend was going to be kind of glorious wall-to-wall sunshine. But it turns out that we will see kind of a weak storm, or not even a storm really, but a weak front kind of pushing through that will increase cloudiness and even bring the chance of thunderstorms. So if we look at, this is going to be the European model, which is kind of the gold standard for models. And this is showing clouds and eventually some precipitation. So Friday looks gorgeous. Probably the warmest day or close to the warmest day. Saturday is also going to be quite warm. And then as we move into the day Saturday, you can kind of see this weak series. These are pretty like high level clouds, but do bring maybe the slight chance of thunderstorms late on Saturday. And then this is kind of over here on the left-hand side, approaching off the coast. This is kind of a stronger marine push and also increasing cloudiness as we go into the day, into the morning Sunday. And then as we go into the afternoon Sunday, you can see a little bit of precipitation moving up. Likely thunderstorms down in kind of Oregon, but those thunderstorms might actually extend throughout the Cascades. And so just be aware that if you are out there, Saturday, especially kind of like, I would say afternoon, be aware that like you could run into some thunderstorms or some light precipitation. But the models do differ on this. If we look at the high resolution models that only go about 60 hours out, so they only go to roughly early Sunday morning, like some of them are showing pretty hefty precipitation amounts, like up over an inch of precipitation on Rainier for it, like Saturday night into Sunday. I don't think that this amount is actually going to happen. I think it's pretty unlikely, but it's something to be aware of. Both kind of as we go, like as we go into the weekend or the last couple days, we've seen a tendency for precipitation to show up in the Eastern Olympics and also some of the volcanoes. Of course, the American model, which is just another model, another tool in our toolkit, hasn't really shown much precipitation falling this weekend. So I would say that there is a chance out there for thunderstorms and a chance for rain or even thunderstorms, even heavy kind of intense precipitation amounts. So just be aware of that. And if you see thunder and you're in, or if you hear thunder or see lightning and you're in a really isolated spot or up on a mountain peak, just be prepared to head down. Watch the skies. In terms of temperature, it's going to be about 10 degrees above normal this weekend. This is showing Saturday, which is predicted to be about the warmest day. Kind of 80s to 90s on the east side, especially in the lower valley. So even up near kind of Mazama, it's predicted to get close to 90, up near Leavenworth. And then on the west side, it looks more like 70s and maybe low 80s, with closer to 90 down near the Portland area. The mountains should be in the 50s and 60s, maybe in the lower areas getting up to the 70s. So a really nice weekend, but the warm temperatures also can lead to some other challenges.
Thanks, Wyatt, for that great overview. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about freezing levels. So this graphic shows the freezing level over the weekend, and you can see it rising from 12,000 to kind of sticking out around 14, 15,000 feet. This is the summit of Rainier. That's quite high for this time of year, before starting to come down on Sunday. And next week, it's kind of hard to tell. Like, things are going all over the place. All the different lines are different ensemble runs. So a lot of uncertainty beyond about Monday. Now, just because freezing level is 15,000 feet doesn't mean you can't see a superficial refreeze, much lower, sometimes down to 10, 9, 8,000 feet, especially if it's clear and calm overnight. But you're probably not going to see like that harder freeze that really sets up the snowpack for better travel conditions throughout the day. And I would expect definitely, like, if it's more cloudy Saturday evening, that will limit the ability of the snow to refreeze with the high freezing levels. So we'll actually probably see a better freezing level on Friday night, despite it being warmer on Saturday. So this is the temperature for Camp Muir in Paradise. And we can see that Camp Muir started to warm up yesterday and went above freezing at 10,000 feet. And it is up to 40 degrees. And it's likely going to stay in the 40s for like 3+ days straight. And when Camp Muir does that, that's often a bad sign for snow travel in the mountains, because it means that the upper elevations are staying warm. And especially since we're still in a pretty wintry snowpack at this point, we're likely to see kind of sloppy travel conditions, some wet avalanche risk, and just generally more difficult travel conditions, especially later in the day. So this is a point forecast for about 9K on Rainier. You can see the highs are in the 50s. Again, temperature, maybe in the 30s. So we might see a refreeze around 9 or 10K if it's pretty clear and calm. But then also Sunday, like, that kind of chance of snow and rain really felt like it came out of nowhere. So if you were planning on going up high on Sunday, that might be something you want to consider. So here's an NWAC observation from our friend. Shout out to Sam for giving a great observation. This is Northwest Avalanche Center. A lot of people that are into backcountry skiing and snowshoeing post their observations there. And so he went up to about 12,500 feet on the Emmons Glacier on Mount Rainier on Wednesday. And they turned back because of high winds, but he talked about a lot of fresh snow. So let's zoom in on the second picture here. You can see that type of snow cover there's a lot of texture. That's not a spring snowpack. He said there was about easily a foot of unconsolidated fresh snow. And so as that warms up, if it's not refreezing well, it could all just turn to kind of mushy nastiness. So that's definitely a concern. It's not to say that you can't find good conditions at the right elevations, the right timing, but it's definitely not the typical conditions we expect by June. This graphic shows the snow depth over different places. We can see that, the snow level is creeping pretty high. So it's mostly just like the higher ridges that have snow. But once you do get above about 6K on the west side, maybe 7K on the east side, we still have a pretty deep snowpack. So there's a very defined snow line in a lot of places. So that means like you can get to a lot of places, but there's still snow to encounter. So this is the Tiana Way, which is in the drier part of the Cascades. And the peaks top out around 7,000 feet. You can see that south aspects and west aspects are completely dry basically now. This is the most recent satellite imagery. However, north aspects still have snow down to like 5,000 feet. And east aspects also have snow pretty low. So if you're going into a place like this, you might be approaching it and think that there's no snow on the mountains, but it can be really aspect dependent at this time of year. Thanks. So the longer term outlook looks like after this warm weather, we might go back into a kind of a colder, wetter pattern again, like more June gloom. So hopefully that doesn't drop too much snow on the mountains if you're hoping for good cord skiing. But, this is kind of how it goes sometimes in June. Finally, I'd like to say thanks to all of our supporting patrons. In return, these people get weekly recreation recommendations every Thursday evening. So we give a little more details about like what kind of activities we think are good, and where to look for the best weather and best activities. So if that kind of thing interests you, we encourage you to check out cascadiamountainweather.com, or you can click on the link in our show notes. Thank you very much. We hope you guys get out and enjoy the relatively sunny and warm weekend.